Hey nerds, Amy here, and today we are going to learn how to set up Power Automate to record form responses within Microsoft lists. First off, we are going to look at some column types and how we can ensure that the form and list are set up so that they can work together effectively. Then we are going to dive into Power Automate, and I'm going to show you exactly the steps needed to set up that flow so that you can get it going on the first try. All right, let's nerd out. At Amy's Animal Barn and Petco, we have this list to track our recruitment process, and we want to record these phone screen interview questions from Microsoft Forms into the list. And how we're going to do that is we are going to use Power Automate to automatically record these responses directly into this Microsoft list. It is going to save you a ton of time. So before we dive into all the good stuff, I did just want to quickly go over the column setup within Microsoft lists, and so that you can ensure that you set up your questions within forms appropriately. There are a couple of quirks that I've noticed, and I just want to highlight those so that you can have a seamless integration within Power Automate. All right, so here is the list, and I did just want to quickly highlight the columns. So here we have the candidate name. This is the status of the applicant. We've got the position that they've applied for. This is the phone screen date, as well as the employee that conducted the phone interview. This is just whether or not we should have a second interview, and then some final remarks. All right, so the candidate name column. This is the default title column within Microsoft Lists, and we've just set up a short text field within Forms, and that feeds over beautifully. The next one is this status of the applicant, and this is not actually defined within Microsoft Forms. It is something that we are going to define within Power Automate. The next one is the position column, and this one is a little bit quirky. So within Microsoft Lists, I've set up a choice, and there is this option down here to say add values manually. And so that is toggled off. However, within Microsoft Forms, we have a choice question, and there is this suggested choice for other. So when I tested this other to see if it was going to work, it did feed over into the list, even though can add values manually was toggled off. So I did just think that that was a little bit quirky. For the purpose of this video, I'm actually going to keep the other here. I do think that it is quite helpful within the hiring process and the recruitment tracker list. However, if you don't want anybody entering anything else other than your choices, then do not include this other option. Onto the date column. This one definitely gets a little bit quirky. So you'll notice that in Microsoft Forms, it is in the format of month, day, and year. And then within the date column within lists, there is this option to include time. But because in Microsoft Forms, there is no option for time, do not include this option here within Microsoft Lists. It is going to completely mess up your date formatting. The friendly format, go for it. You can toggle that on or off. In the date column, I've noticed within Power Automate that there is this dynamic content option for submission time. So because our employees are doing the interview on the phone and completing the form at the same time, I can actually use this option here to record the date and the time within the Microsoft list. And then if you do that and use that option, then we can definitely include the time within the list. Once again, that friendly format can stay on or off. So that was just a nice workaround if you did want to have the timestamp there. However, it will depend on your situation, whether it is appropriate to use or not. The last thing that I want to add on the date column is that if you are going to be using this time toggle along with your submission time, then just ensure that you toggle this on before you start to submit your forms. If you have it turned off and then you turn it back on, you are going to notice that the timings are not quite lining up. The next column is the phone screener column. And as you'll see in Microsoft Lists, I have set this up as a person or a group. So this is the employee that's conducting the interview. And I have also shown the profile photos. I do just love this feature, and I think it creates a nice visual effect. Now, within Microsoft Forms, I have just done a choice column here, and you just need to ensure that these employee names are entered exactly as they are within your organization within Microsoft. If they are, then you will see that Amy has fed over perfectly, including her profile photo. All right, the last column is the final remarks column, and this is just some general notes about the candidate and the interview overall. This is a multiple lines of text column within the list, and it is just a standard text field within the form. This feeds over quite seamlessly, so there are no issues. Now that we have learned how Microsoft Forms and Microsoft lists communicate with each other, we can now dive into Power Automate to set up a flow. Within Power Automate, the first thing that we need to do is head on over to Create and then Automated Cloud Flow. So this is going to be triggered by designated event, which in this case is going to be when that form is submitted. And from here, we've got a couple of trigger options, and the one that I want to use is at the top here, but you can also search when a new response is submitted. So we're going to select that. And so now the first thing that we need to grab is the form ID. You can see here that mine is not populating. And if you can see the form that you want, great. But what we need to do then to get the ID is head on over to the form. So I've got this form open here. And then from the URL, you're going to see that there is a bunch of stuff. And then about halfway, you're going to see ID equals. And we need to copy all of this form ID this jargon from the URL. So I've got all of that selected, and I'm just going to go Control C. Back within Power Automate, we can select this field here and go enter custom value. Now I'm just going to Control V, and that is going to paste my form ID into the field. Now we are going to add a new step. And this is going to be get response details. You can see down here, this is under actions and it's within Microsoft Forms. So if we select that, then once again, we are going to have to copy that form ID from above and then just be sure to enter the custom value and paste that ID once again. Now from the response ID, we can add that from the dynamic content. It should just be the one option here, and it is pulling from this action here. All right, so now we need to add a new step, and this is going to be the create an item, and it's going to be within SharePoint, as you can see here. So the first thing that we need to add is the site address, and this is showing some sites within your organization. So we need to select the site that is hosting the list that we are going to be creating an item in. In my example, mine is actually in my human resources team, and that is not showing down here. So what we need to do is we need to enter a custom value. We need to copy the URL, and just a little sidebar while we are in here, I did just want to highlight the phone screen date. And you'll notice here that there are these two that are submitted at 12 a.m. And that is because when these two were submitted, that time formatting was toggled to off. So it showed that they were submitted at midnight. So that's why it's really important to, if you want to show the time with the submission date, is to have this toggled on from the beginning of your form submission. And then that will just ensure that all of your times are showing up correctly. So that was just a little sidebar, but now we can dive into this URL, and we are basically going to copy everything. You're going to notice that this says personal. So that's because I created this list within my personal profile. It wasn't embedded into a team from the beginning. And we're just going to copy everything up until this first bracket before lists. So if we just Control C, then we can copy that. So now this pulls the column names from the list. So we are just going to need to map this form to the list. So the first one is the candidate name, and that status value is not in the form, as I had mentioned previously. And we want all of these candidates to be active when they are entered into the list. I'm going to set that there, and then we are just going to continue on. All right, so now that we have mapped all of those, We can save our flow and test it out. We can open up our form and head on up to preview. And then you can just quickly enter some of the required fields just to ensure that this is pulling correctly. I'm going to skip page 2 because none of these fields are going to actually pull over to the list. And should we have a second interview? Yes. And a quick note, if you haven't already, then please subscribe to this channel. All right, so submit your form and let's go take a look within Microsoft Lists. Here we are within the list, and if we just refresh the list, and we will see that Susan Harris is showing up there, and all of this information is correct. All right, and yes, we did it. Nice work. All right, so that wraps up this video, and I do hope that I've helped you discover your inner nerd today. And I also hope that I've helped you set up Power Automate so that you can record your form responses within Microsoft Lists. If you haven't already, then please remember to hit that subscribe button, as well as give it a like, and also let me know how this worked for you in the comments below. All right, thanks for nerding out. We'll see you again.